Hello everybody and welcome to one more video on big units, and this time let's come to the 90s, particularly the 90s, but as I'll show you, you can go a little bit back and forth in time. And this is the famous, one of the most famous Iraqi divisions. It's the 3rd Saladin armor division, something that I started to build more or less during the war. I still remember these T-72s that still had, of course, on those days, and still didn't have markings and things like that. I found those things later, but I started to have interest in this campaign. It is a campaign from my youth, and as usual, I always tend to go somewhat into those actions. It is a very funny unit because it is almost Republican Guard status. It's a kind of a Grossdeutschland division, so it is somewhere in between the regular and the elite unit. It received lots of good equipment, as you can see, plenty of BMP-1s, plenty of T-72s in several of its brigades. So it was in fact a very good unit. I mean, it started its life in the 1973 Yom Kippur War. We didn't fare particularly well. Then it spearheaded one of the famous attacks of the before that, sorry, it participated obviously on the Iran-Iraq War. Then during the 1990 and 1991 Kuwaiti campaign, it entered into Kuwait, one of the units that fought with the Kuwaitis, and then it spearheaded together with the 5th Mohammed Ibn al-Qasim mechanized division. It spearheaded the famous attack on Khafji. That caused some turmoil in the Qatari, Saudi, and American forces, and then it was, as usual, that war repulsed especially by the aviation, by the powerful coalition aviation. It was to a good extent destroyed during the 100-hour campaign, and before that at Khafji already suffered some casualties, and then of course it was reborn, and it happened in fact several times. This division was reborn after 73, but then it showed up again on the Iran-Iraq War, and then was reborn again for the 1990 and 1991 campaign, and then finally in the 2003 U.S. invasion of Iraq, it showed up again. I mean, they did what they could, of course, but it was not easy to face, of course, the might of the American army and American, especially of course, the very strong air force that the Americans had. So it is known that Apaches and Thunderbolts and things like that destroyed much of the things that you are seeing on the table. Of course, on a 1-to-5, or in terms of men, 1-to-15 ratio, obviously. So let's go into the organization. So you see here one of the armored brigades, which was the 12th, which had T-55s and T-72s, and obviously the BMP-1, which was present in all 4 brigades. Then you see here the 6th tank brigade with T-62s and BMP-1s over there again, and then the mechanized brigade, mechanized divisions obviously had 2 brigades of infantry and 1 of armor, which was the opposite on the armor division. So 2 brigades of tanks and 1 of infantry. So this was the main infantry component, and you see here T-72s and the BMP-1s again. And here, of course, the mechanized brigade has much more infantry than tanks. So you still have units of artillery, as you can see here, of air defense and reconnaissance over there. Okay, then I will tell you a little bit with a few more informations about some other models that you can add to this one in order to have the Republican Guard. Republican Guard division, or at least some elements of a Republican Guard division. So this was very funny to do. Plenty of conversions. Most of the infantry is converted. There are plenty of tanks also that were converted. I'll show you why. So let's go into the model. So I think the first things that I had were these T-72s, at least some of them. So these ones here, these 12 here are Eshi, and these 6 ones here are a copy of the Eshi that were made in China, those soft plastic tanks. But incredibly, look, this is the Eshi one and this is the Chinese copy, and not a big difference. It was extremely funny because they are extremely good. Of course, I had to put some extras. Look, so there is the light over there. There is the Dushka, the anti-aircraft gun, obviously, antenna, the oil drums, the side skirts. All these are additions. Others have the Chinese rangefinder also. Look, next to above the mantlet when it joins the turret, of course. And these are particularly good. They were extremely cheap as usual with this Chinese stuff, and they were direct copies of the Eshi ones. You see, direct copies of these ones here, and the models are pretty nice. Maybe this one it isn't. I remember buying 6, so yeah, this one is the command version of this tank battalion, and it is again Eshi. So there is a total of 13 Eshi tanks, and 13. No, sorry, 13. And then there are 6 copies of the Eshi tanks, and there is still some. This one here is Altaya, and maybe this one also. Yeah, I can see by the weight. Also Altaya again with some extras, as you can see on the Chinese rangefinder, the figure, of course, and the light on top of the turret. Some additions. The version, of course, is the T-72M, which was the version that the Iraqis had on this division. Some of them already lost the side skirts, or at least I was lazy to put them. Others have the side skirt and are true T-62M by Eshi. Others are T-62 simple T-62s, and then I made the side skirts in plastic art. For instance, you can see this one here. And you can see the holes that are painted, and the divisions between the panels are also painted. So it is a simple affair here. So this is the T-62 brigade, and this is I'll show you first because it was my in fact the first tanks that I'm not going to say that I built them all at the same time. For instance, this last Altaya are quite recent, only a few years, while these ones are already a few decades. Now let's go to the let's leave the 6th tank brigade and let's go to the 12th. 12th has a funny mix of T-55s. These are all Skytrex, very heavy, as you can imagine, and T-72s. Most of the T-72s are, in fact, T-80s that I converted to T-72s, while others, like this front rank, like this battalion, is mostly Skytrex, very, very heavy models and extremely beautiful models also. And when they hit the ground, you can see that they are Skytrex because it's almost 1 kilo each. I mean, maybe I'm exaggerating, but well, half a kilo. And the reason why is that why T-80s? Because in fact I had this information. Let me try to find the magazine. Yeah, it's this one here. I have this magazine here from the 90s, of course. It is, you see, it's a French magazine, and it was from January 1991, from the time of Khafji. And it had this word here. Where it is? Let me show you. Over there, you see, T-80, and then a question mark. It was enough for me to buy, let me check, 1, 2, 3, 10, some 13 or 14 T-80s, And I was expecting to find the T-80 inside the Iraqi army, of course, and make them directly. And they are obviously, it was the old Revel model of the T-80, and to no avail, because in fact Iraq never had the T-80. So what, on those days in the 90s, what could I do with the T-80? Of course, converting to the T-72. So I had a lot of work converting, and at the same time lots of fun, because the model is, in fact, the T-80. If you convert it properly, it is not that different from a T-72. So obviously, the V-shaped front was was made in evergreen. Plenty of turret details were taken out and others were added, because the configuration of the turret is completely different in both models. There were the smoke dischargers, the snorkel here to the side. Let's remember that the T-80 is a gas. It has a gas turbine, while the T-72 is diesel. So there are plenty of differences. Also, the engine was changed, was erased, and then made in new markings. Markings, I call it like that, were made in evergreen, in thin evergreen plastic. The oil drums were also changed. I mean, plenty of details were changed, and this, I think you can accept that it looks really like a T-72, because the turret is very similar, the chassis are very similar, and the wheels are in the same number. So you can do some reasonable T-72s by converting the T-80. And this is all. So this brigade had plenty of conversions, as you can see. There is a Force of Valor here for the command also, diecast. There is another diecast here by Altaya. And the best one I could find up to now, it is in fact the Revel one. Revel one is a very beautiful model. T-72 M1 by Revel is very nice. It's really very nice. And I like to place especially Skytrex metal models for my Iraqis. So here it is. So as you can see, you can see here 21 tanks in this brigade, which is generally what the Iraqi armored brigade should have. So 7 tanks by battalion. A few more tanks here, as you can see, on the 8 mechanized brigade here. Again, Skytrex here, very heavy. And then again, same trick with this is in fact a 4D, the only one of the few decent models that 4D had from their first batch, which was really very bad. But I managed to convert their not very convincing T-72 that they had, with new wheels, new sides, skirts, plenty of details on the turret. It became, again, reasonable. And in the middle of the others, you really don't notice much of a difference. And these last two are again T-80s converted. Yeah, these are T-80s converted. Okay. Now for the transport of the infantry. So most of it, no, all of them. There are a total of 15 BMP-1s by Skytrex. So lots of weight also. Lots of problems with the mailmen carrying all this metal up to my doorstep from England. Another battalion here and 3 battalions here. One of the battalions of the 8 mechanized had this camouflaged BMP-1s. They're still in the United States. There are still some that were captured in this with these camouflage colors. Now for the infantry, a little bit for the infantry. Most of the infantry is Eshi, if not all. I mean, there are some SHQ, there are some Skytrex miniatures, but most of them are in fact the conversions from the Eshi Viet Cong, boxes, or Vietnamese forces, if you want. Also, Warsaw Pact forces gave all bodies, and then with M1 American helmets, they became the Iraqi infantry. And they managed to get very close. So you can see here some of them, for instance, with this is the famous Viet Cong running with a new. Let's try to focus. okay, with the US M1 helmet and then camouflage trousers. Here he is. So each company has a PK. Always there is of course the RPGs, and in the command you can see here, for instance, the Milan here. You can see here the mortar, 81mm mortar command from, in this case, by SHQ. There's a Plamia, an AGS-17, and also an anti-aircraft missile, which is the SA-7 Grail. Okay, and this guy, he is, if I'm not mistaken, Skytrex, and the other figure here, this one, is Eshi. And then there is also a sniper here by SHQ. So, for instance, you can find here on the Commander Land Rover, which the Iraqis also had. There is some toy truck with some conversion, some scratch built ZU-23. They had plenty of also some requisitioned trucks for the army. So this is just a possibility. There's also pickup in this other battalion of infantry, another truck-borne ZU-23. More conversions. For instance, this one is a Sagar, converted Sagar, and the guy that is operating it is what? Maybe a Matchbox figure, I don't know. I don't really remember. Together with another guy, yeah, with a Warsaw Pact Eshi on the back with new head, of course. More of the same in terms of infantry. And now, if you go to the motorized infantry, to the mechanized infantry, sorry, you see here a Skytrex Sagar with the famous Matchbox figure, at least a conversion of it. Next to it, there's snipers also, again, the Grail anti-aircraft gun, anti-aircraft missile, portable missile. You see here Milan. These Milans are all scratch built, and some other support. And then you see here the infantry. So a total of 9 companies, 12 if you count the command. There are some jeeps, and these jeeps are Italian. They are made by Atlantic, and they look a lot with a model of an Iraqi jeep that was coming from one of the eastern countries, but that now I can't really remember. It looks a lot with it. Believe me, you have to trust my word. BMP-1s more. I already spoke about that. Now let's leave the brigades, the 2 armored brigades and the mechanized brigade. Let's go, for instance, for the reconnaissance group. You see your BRDM 2s by Skytrex and a Spandrel, a BRDM with anti-tank missiles. You see here the BTR 50PU, which is the command version of the BTR 50. Let me check. From this one is a conversion from the Skytrex model. Extremely heavy again. Plenty of boxes and things like that, antennas, and plenty of added material. And this one is an original by Ace, one of those nightmare models. But in the end, they all become very nice as usual. But it's not easy to build these things. Plenty of boxes again. There he is. Okay. So reconnaissance is seen, and reconnaissance, battalion. I think it was the 20th reconnaissance battalion, exactly. Mostly with BRDM 2s and BTR 50 PUs. Then you have the anti-aircraft, the 95th, if I'm not mistaken, it was the 95th Air Defense Regiment with Shilkas here. This Shilka here, and these ones are, I think, Armo. I think Armo is, if I'm not mistaken, they are coming from Czechoslovakia on those days. I mean, nowadays Czech Republic, maybe on those days still Czechoslovakia. And these 2 here, the last 2 are Cromwell. Slightly smaller because they're 176, and the Armo ones are the 172. And also some Gaskins, some again by Armo. Very nice models also. also anti-aircraft. So short range, medium range, of course, or slightly more than medium range air defense. It has to do with that Russian doctrine of having layers of anti-aircraft, which all armies, of course, try to do. But I think Russians became specialized in that area in which you have short and medium and high altitude missiles for whatever enemy you have on the air. Then there are some artillery groups here. You see here plenty of armor Gvozdikas, the 2S1s. I think it's 2S1, right? I think so, yeah. These ones are Cromwell, these last two, but these four here are armor. And by modelism, you have the very nice, I think it's one of the best representation of the BM-21, the Katyusha. At least not called Katyusha that much, but looks like, of course, with the Katyusha of World War II, so of World War II fame. So I think many people still continue to call it Katyusha. The division is almost at an end, but I would like to show you something else. If you pick some of the T-72s, which were the mainstay of the Republican Guard tank divisions, the Hammurabi, the Tavakalna, all those very, very important units of the Iraqi army, if you pick these ones, together with these ones, together also with the BMP-1s, and if you couple them with this artillery here, for instance, you can have the Republican Guard units also. So these ones here are the French AMX 155mm guns. These are all Altaya. I also have the same number for the Saudis. They have, of course, painted the symbol of the Republican Guard, and they are ready to convert somehow the Saladin to a Republican Guard unit. The same with these Roland missile systems, anti-aircraft missile systems, again Altaya, and also used by the Republican Guard. So this is it. This is the one of the important units of the Iraqi army. I mean, this is obviously gone. But for a period of several decades, 70s, 80s, and 90s, it was one of the best and well-organized units of the Saddam Hussein's army. So I hope you have enjoyed, and see you next. Next time I'll show you I'll take the advantage of the infantry being already positioned, and I'll show you another division of the Iraqi army, which is the 5th mechanized, the Mohammed Ibn al-Qasim, if I'm not mistaken. That's the name of the division. It was also an important division that participated also in the attack on Khafji. So I hope you've enjoyed, and see you next with more, on this case, Iraqis, and then their aviation and things like that. Okay? Hope you have enjoyed. Bye-bye.